the ultimate guide to making roti. And if you're trying to impress someone, this is the way to do it. Apart from making chai, that's good too, but if you can nail this, then you're set. Roti is a type of flatbread, and for those who don't know, it's kind of similar to a tortilla or pita bread, but one of the main differences is that roti is made with wholemeal wheat flour, also known as atta, and you would commonly use this by breaking off a small piece and scooping up whatever you're eating it with. Lots of different places in the world have their own variation of roti, from South Asia to parts of Africa to the Caribbeans, and today we'll be going over a classic style of roti that's popular in Pakistan. To prep, let's gather the following. You'll need atta, salt, a large mixing bowl, a jug of water by your side, olive oil, a large plastic Tupperware bowl so you can let the dough rest, and a rolling pin. Along with about an hour of your time, or maybe more if you never made roti before, the majority of your time is going to be spent on kneading the dough, which is the most important step according to Mama. With that being said, let's begin. The first step is to add some atta into your mixing bowl with some salt. Now, there are no real measurements in Pakistani cuisine, it's pretty much eyeballed. If we wanted to guesstimate, this is probably around 4 cups of atta with 1 tablespoon of salt. Mama will then periodically add lukewarm water to the dough and with her fingertips, slowly bring the dough together. Making roti is less about measurements and more about how the dough feels and looks. You'll want to continue adding water until it comes together as shown here. If you're making roti as you watch this video, try to compare what yours looks like to what Mama has in her bowl and mimic accordingly. The dough should be quite pliable and not really dense. You can see here Mama also has a good habit of cleaning her bowl as she works, so she doesn't waste any food.
Not too soft, not hard. बस यहीं से आपको पता लग जाएगा कि आपका आटा ठीक है। साथ साथ आपने अपने बर्तन भी साफ करने हैं, मुझे बहुत आदत है। मुझे आटे का बर्तन बिल्कुल नीट क्लीन आदत है मेरी।
And to clarify, this is just bringing the dough together. We are not kneading yet. Once the dough comes together like this, let it rest for about 10 minutes and then you can begin the kneading process. To knead, make sure you remove any jewelry and you'll be using your fists and knuckles to knead this into a soft dough. You can see here Mama starts from either the top or bottom and works in the opposite direction, while also periodically adding water to her hands if she feels the dough is starting to get a bit dry. She'll also sometimes flip the dough onto the other side and continue the kneading process with her fists. Now keep in mind the whole kneading process could take around 20 minutes or so depending on how hard you work. So don't be afraid to kind of overwork the dough. If you think you're done but it doesn't really look like Mama's, then you may need to knead some more. The end product should be pretty soft, not too sticky or tacky or even dry, and if you push down with your fingers, it should leave a print and not immediately bounce back. You can see here with Mama's hands, the dough isn't really getting stuck to her fingers, and it's also not so dry or hard that it's difficult to press down on. Now let's grab the Tupperware bowl and add olive oil to grease it up. Transfer the dough here and let it rest in the fridge for about 20 minutes. Letting it relax just a bit will make it easier to shape into balls and then later roll it out. After it's rested, it's time to make dough balls. You can take out portions of dough around the size of your palm should do, and with your 4 fingers quickly scoop it up. Have some extra atta in a container by your side and lightly coat the dough into the atta. Now you can see here Mama is taking the perimeter of the dough ball and pushing it towards the center with the palms of her fingers and working in the same fashion all the way around.
इसलिए करेंगे कि इसका लेवल पूरा आ जाए, राउंड शेप इसकी अच्छी आ जाए। सी ये खुद ब खुद राउंड हो रहा है अभी ये। फिर इसको आहिस्ता आहिस्ता रोल करना है इसको। जितना रोल करोगे उतना अच्छा। सी very smooth.
Now let's prep the dough balls before we begin rolling. Take one dough ball and press both sides into some atta, and with your palm and fingers, gently press the perimeter of the dough so it changes from being a ball to more of a disc.
इसके सारी साइडें आपने राउंड आपने इसको बनाना है। That's it.
Now it's time to roll out your dough. Grab a rolling pin, any will do, and gently roll out the roti into circles. And you can either use your hands to help turn the dough as you roll, or you can try to be a pro like my mom and all the other aunties out there and just have the dough rotate by itself. I find the trick to rotating it without your hand is to kind of picture the roti as a clock and only really add pressure from 1 to 5 o'clock in a circular motion. You can see here Mama's hands are really light, she's not adding a lot of pressure and is letting the rolling pin do the work. This way it won't really get stuck to the counter, but if it does get a bit stuck, feel free to sprinkle down some extra atta. After it's rolled out, it should look like this. It's quite thin, but not really see-through thin. Don't think of this like phyllo pastry, you shouldn't be able to clearly see the other side, and you should be able to hold it up without it easily tearing apart. Now it's time to cook it. We traditionally use what's called a tawa, which is a really flat pan. You can use any pan that's flat and large enough. Put this on medium-high heat, and as soon as it starts to smoke, place the roti on top. You don't need to add any butter to this. And you'll notice that the top begins to change into this darker tannish color. Once the top completely changes to this color, you're ready to flip. As we watch this change color in real time, it's important to note that you don't want to have all your rotis rolled out beforehand and then cook them one after another. The reason being is if you let your rotis sit out on the counter for too long, then it'll end up being dry and it won't be as fluffy or tasty. What you want to do is make your dough ball, roll it out, then immediately transfer it to a hot pan. Now you can see here that the top has completely changed its color and it's ready to flip. Now what you want to do is cook the other side until it forms little brown spots. You can see here Mama is using some tongs to periodically rotate this so it gets evenly cooked. A lot of stoves may have hot spots, so just make sure it's not sitting in one spot at all times. You can also check by folding over one half to see if small brown spots have formed or if it needs more time before flipping again.
Light brown हो गई, इसके बाद हम इसको turn करेंगे.
Now if you don't have a gas stove, you can just flip the roti on the tawa and cook the other side until it also forms similar brown spots and you're done. But if you do have a gas stove, you can flip it directly onto a high heat flame. This will allow the roti to puff up, which will result in a light and airy roti. Be sure to constantly flip and rotate while on a direct flame, because if you don't, then it's really easy to burn your roti. Now again, this part is optional. You can always just cook everything directly on the tawa and it's perfectly fine. But this is highly recommended if you do have a gas stove. Now sometimes you may find you unevenly roll out the roti, which will cause thinner spots or maybe even holes. This won't allow the roti to puff up. In that case, you can still try to complete the cooking process on the flame even though it's not completely puffed up, or you can put it back on the tawa to complete its cooking process by ensuring both sides are evenly brown. After it's done, immediately transfer it to a plate and cover it with a towel so it doesn't dry out and stays warm until it's ready to serve. And there you have it. That's your roti. So now you're ready to eat. All you gotta do is break a piece off and scoop up whatever you're eating it with and enjoy. Now there's so many other different types of flatbreads, from parathas to naans, even different types of rotis that don't use atta and maybe a mix or something completely different like cornmeal. Check back later because we'll be doing breakdowns on those other types of flatbreads in future recipe videos. Making roti takes a lot of time and practice. If you find you made some mistakes or completely failed, don't be discouraged. Look back at what you think went wrong, i.e. too little or too much water or atta, or maybe you didn't need enough, and just get back into it. Practice makes perfect.